Okay, hello all you crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and I really hope my microphone settings are fine now. God, the last 2 weeks sucked. Anyway, we have a tower defense game. This is coming along, as I say, pretty much every week. We have some limitations on where we can place towers. We are no longer able to place towers inside of each other. You can see this one that I'm trying to place down is glowing red if I stick it inside another tower or inside a tree or something. Objects have collision, sort of, or at least enough collision, and I am finally now going to get around to adding some new kinds of towers. Right now there's really just the one and a like half-broken friendly encouragement buffing tower that I hadn't intended to make and doesn't really do its job. I'm going to add a few more kinds. So the first thing I'm going to do is go into the project folder in Windows Explorer, and I'm going to design some new tower designs. So there's tower and there's tower buff. The only difference in their designs is really their color. Tower buff is blue, and if I can find the other model creator window, the regular tower is kind of gray. I am going to actually think about some designs now. This may take up one video, this may take up two. I have a feeling it's going to take up two because of, well, let's just say that there's been a number of weekly video subjects that I've expected to take up one video and they ended up taking two. So I'm going to design these both visually and in the game. So I initially planned on not doing any preparation for this and just opening up like a spreadsheet or some other mathematical computer software and messing with numbers. And I decided I don't actually want to do that because that tends to be kind of boring and not make for a super good video. So this time I did a little bit of preparation ahead of time as for what kind of towers I want to make and what they're going to look like more or less. So as for balance, the way I'm going to do this for balancing this game is first I'm going to take the map, this kind of loop-de-loop map, crisscrossing map that I have, and try to balance the game around this so that it's moderately challenging without being impossible. This, as I've said in the past, is a pretty good tower defense map, as far as having a lot of points where towers can hit foes on multiple passes goes. There's this section over here where a tower can hit both the beginning and the end of the map, and then there's this section over here where you have a kind of a crossroads where towers can also hit foes on the path more than once. I'm going to try to balance this game around this, and after that, other maps will be probably a little bit more linear, a little bit less helpful, and we shall see about modulating difficulty from there. And I'm also going to work on towers first, and then we'll see how things like enemy balance go, and tower upgrades and that kind of thing. So there's a couple tower types I have. There's the basic one, which I think I've called Pebble Shooter, as in it's like throwing rocks at the bugs as they walk past or something. Bugs are weak to rock, whatever. This is pretty straightforward. I'm probably going to leave this alone. Where is the actual definition for this? The actual definition for that is here. It does 1 shot per second. It has a range of 96 pixel units. It does a damage of 1 per shot. And it costs 10 pieces of currency. The one under that in this code here, in this code definition, is a fire shooter. This I haven't really put any thought into balancing or anything like that. I think it'll actually crash if you place it down, so whatever it is, it's not even implemented properly. And there's also the friendly tower, who's intended to buff the towers around it, which I also kind of haven't really implemented properly. A while ago in the comments, someone mentioned having a magnifying glass tower, since the theme of this is bugs, and like magnifying glass. Bugs, frying them as they walk beneath. I like that idea. I think I'm going to, I did write that down, and that will be going in eventually. I do not remember who suggested that because it was a while ago, but your name will be on screen right now, thank you. There's also, going with the theme of bugs, bug spray or something of that nature, which is effectively poison damage, does damage over time. I'm imagining creating like a cloud of hazard on the track, which bugs would take damage as they walk through and take poison damage afterwards or something like that. And also, and I haven't really made up my mind on this, it could be both either a bird or a frog, since those are kind of natural predators for bugs. A frog would most likely just kind of sit in one place, like sit on a rock or something, and periodically eat things that walk past, and a bird is, I guess it could do that. There could be like a bird nest tower, and they just periodically swoop down beneath it to just completely one-shot whatever walks past. Or maybe you could just like build a bird nest tower somewhere and they would just fly off on their own all around the map in a circle or something like that. maybe crisscross the map sideways or diagonally or something. This is why I have a feeling this section of the series is going to take multiple videos. Oh, the other thing about the frog is that it would probably live in water. I haven't really done anything with water so far in the series. I'm thinking about it. I'm not sure if it's going to really be something that's necessary. The game could be fine without it, and honestly, I can't think of too many uses for such a thing other than just visual effects and, well, frogs. So let's get started. I am going to move that over to the side. Actually, I'm going to just collapse this asset browser entirely so that there's more space for code. This I'm going to leave alone. The Pebble Shooter I'm going to leave alone. I'll change its visual design a little bit later so that it's more clear that it's like rocks or something like that it's throwing. Otherwise, the fire rate is fine. 1 per second, actually. Yeah, 1 per second is fine. The range is fine, which is 3 by 32 equals 96 pixel units, which is about 3 tiles if you were to look at it in the room editor. Again, the room editor isn't especially useful right now, but if you wanted to, oops, 32 by 32. If you wanted to visualize how much space things take up, that would be a radius of about 3 tiles. What's next? The damage is 1, that's fine, I think. And the cost is 10 currency units, which, again, fine. Fire towers, these I want to be a little bit fancier. Fire is something that you could imagine doing more damage to a bug and probably doing burn damage over time or something like that. I'm going to make the fire rate. Let's see. This is shots per second, right? Did I leave a comment about that? Yes, shots per second. I'm going to make the 0.5 shots per second, so there's a 2-second cooldown instead of 1. The bullet that it fires, the pebble that it fires. I'm also going to change this thing's visuals later. This is probably not going to happen in this video. Range. Right now, I gave this thing a reduced range, I suppose, so I'll just increase that to the same as the Pebble Shooter tower. Damage is 1, as I said. Probably burn damage over time is going to be the interesting part of this. And cost. As I've said, this is a better tower. It should probably cost more. Given that taking down most foes gives you somewhere between like 2 and 5 units of currency, I feel like a 40, maybe 50. But I'll go with 40 for now. Should be pretty good. I sketched this out on paper. I didn't spend a tremendous amount of time like modeling this with a graph or anything. And like I said, I will be balancing the foes that come in around the towers later. This is going to be my first step. All right. Tower buff. There is a separate subclass for tower buff, isn't there? Entity tower buff. Okay. There was some funny business with this being treated like a regular tower earlier. I might comment this out and come back to it later, since I think everything else that I do right now is going to be like offensive tower types. Alright. Let's talk about magnifying glasses. Visually, picturing something that's going to look a lot like kind of a laser. You'll see what I mean momentarily if you can't envision that in your head. The fire rate is going to be interesting. This is going to be a continuous beam attack instead of discrete projectiles, so I think I'm just going to leave the fire rate at 0. This is going to be another subclass of a tower, I think, when it's actually created. The range, this has the potential to be very devastating if you just let it attack anything. So I'm going to say, let's make the range smaller. This can be like 1.5 tile units in radius. The damage, this is probably going to be per second instead of per shot. I can't really think of a better way to do this. Doing it per frame would just make things weird in the calculations, both in my head trying to estimate how much damage it'll do, and I'm going to play it kind of safe and say let's do 1 damage per second, 1 DPS for now, and this should be approximately on par in terms of goodness with the fire tower, so I'll make it the same cost. The model, let's just load the generic tower model and the projectile. We will deal with both of those things later. Bug spray. This I don't think is going to actually do damage itself. Instead, it's going to generate some number of clouds of like bug spray gas per second. I'm going to say let's make that 2, so we're going to generate 2 per second. Is that okay? This is not going to damage anything directly. Instead, it's going to generate clouds of, as I said before, poison gas or something along those lines. Like, I don't know, an insect ant trap or something like that. Probably a cloud of gas, because that sounds fun. And it's going to generate, I think, 1 per second, and we'll have them last, like, I don't know, probably a second and a half each or so. The radius, it'll be kind of weird if the radius is small for this, because then the clouds will all clump up in the same place, which I don't think will be very useless. So let's make this a little bit bigger. Let's make this 4 times 32. Damage, that's going to be 0. As I said, this isn't going to do damage on its own. And cost. I feel like this will be very situational in play. There are some very specific places on maps where this would be useful. I feel like the strategy for this is going to be a little bit different from usual tower defense strategies. Instead of wanting to place one of these things in a junction where foes cross by multiple times, or at least on the inside of a curve, I feel like you would want to place this on a straight path so that you can more reliably hit things and there's not like a ton of randomness in where the clouds are generated. Let's give this a cost of 40 as well. And then, you know what, I can just copy and paste the load model code. The bird nest / frog. Do I want to do that now? I'm not going to do those now, so let's start with these. Let's start with these 4. Okay, so designs. This is what everyone came here for, I know. Designs. Let's change the way the generic tower looks. I'm going to save this as something else. This can be like my base tower model. I'm going to save this as towerpebble.d3d, and we're going to make it look a little bit rockier.
Let's change that to brown, perhaps. That's kind of nope. It's kind of purplish. Let's change it to something a little more brown. Maybe like that. That might be a little dark. That might be hard to see. Let's go with more orange. And I'm going to create some rocks. A very kind of usable strategy. Let's move you off to the side so that you're not there. A usable strategy for creating rocks in 3D modeling programs for someone who does not have artistic talent is to create something along the lines of a sphere or a rectangular prism cube, if you want. And that's going to be 16 in all dimensions, a radius of 16. Convert that to triangles, and just extrude it in random directions. So I'm going to select some points. I'm going to move them around. I'm not going to like delete any points. Oops. I'm also not going to force them to be squished in weird ways like that. I meant to select something else. Let's look at it on another axis and kind of push them around, push vertices around this way. And it's roughly spherical, but it looks a little more like a rock now. If I were to dye that orange, you would see. I'm going to play a little bit with variations in color a little bit. This is also way big. When I'm done messing with it, I will scale it down considerably, probably by about half, so that it doesn't take up as much space compared to the tower. I could, I suppose, use the candy models for this, but since those are environment objects, I don't want to make them confused with the towers. Let's see. That's good enough. Let's drop this down by 50% in size. And give it a slightly more brownish color. Is that okay? That'll do. I'll play with color a little bit. And actually, let's should I shrink it more? Nah, that's good. Let's move it around the base of the tower. I'm going to copy, paste, and like rotate stuff in random ways. I'm just going to rotate it around a bunch of axes in different ways so that the same side isn't facing up constantly, which is another trick you can do when it comes to giving rocks a bit of a little bit of uniqueness with just one rock object model. I know in the in a previous video, when I was placing rocks around in the as level design, I just rotated them randomly so that they looked a lot less uniform. All right. I don't know how many I want. Let's give that some more random rotation. If you do this programmatically, it can save a bit of time. Like if you generate a bunch of models and then just stick them on one model, on one tower model. I'm not going to do that now though. Alright, that'll do it. This one here is kind of sticking a little far out of the edge. Can I move that? Since this isn't like as fancy as Blender or anything with object groups, I can't just select a rock if it's embedded in a bunch of other rocks without like affecting everything else, unfortunately. I think that'll be good enough though. Maybe I guess what I can do is shrink the entire base there down a little bit. I'm also going to for the sake of saving triangles, I'm also going to delete triangles that are below the floor. And you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. Let's scale that down by 25% and then move it back. There we go. Is that good? Is that too much? That's actually kind of too much. I will undo that. Let's see, how many faces are in this? This contains 1,152 triangles total, 972 of which are selected. About half of those are going to be below the ground and will never be seen by the player or the camera or anything like that. So I will delete those. This is a bit of a 3D optimization trick. How many are those? This is 352 selected out of 1,100, so I can get rid of about a third of the faces in this 3D model just by deleting the ones that are below the floor that the camera will never be able to see. This isn't anything advanced when it comes to optimization. This is just removing stuff that doesn't have to be there, that's just taking up processing time that the player will never know about. Okay. So now that that's been done, let's move you back to the origin. Is that the origin? Did I hit that correctly? I did not. Oh, I did. Alright, not bad.
So we can save that. If I were to change the 3D model of tower_pebbles to the one I just made, that'll be good. And file is not opened for reading. Is the file there? Oh, it's Pebble without the plural on the end. Okay. So let's try this Pebble Shooter, and we will create you there. You see, indeed, there are rocks around the base of you. That's pretty nice. The top of it, now that the rocks are there and they have a little bit more detail than just like a couple of triangles, the top part of the tower looks a little bit off, especially the turret. It's a little weird. Anyway, if I were to send in a wave, maybe build another one. Does this look good? Does this look sufficiently cool? I think it looks sufficiently cool. I have 20 money. Fire tower doesn't do anything currently, right? I'm not able to place it. Oh, I need 40 bits of currency in order to place a fire tower, and I do not have that. Should probably let the player know. Anyway, as this is right now, I cannot beat this because I can't do enough damage using the pebble towers at one time, and I guess I can just build more of those infinitely, but it's only going to get me so far. Is that even going to take anything down at all? I'm dead. I am officially screaming in existential torment. There's a couple ways I could address that balance. One, I could drop the cost of the things. Another one might be to increase the amount of starting money to something like, let's say, 75 instead of 50. I could build a couple pebble shooters here, and from here a fire tower, maybe over off on the side over there. Let's see what happens when I send in a wave now. The camera angle is really kind of getting in the way of itself sometimes. Alright, I can't tell how much damage it's doing, but it is attacking slow. Alright, well, it seems to be doing enough that I am able to mow these guys down at least. By the time they swing by there, this should be finished. Alright, one got through. The slow fire rate, the 2-second cooldown for the fire rate is definitely something that feels a lot slower in the actual game than it does than I expected it to. And I am back at the position where I am not really able to kill anything sufficiently. Killing a couple things. Alright, the other problem is that the foe's health is going up as more and more waves come in. And it looks like I'm dead again. 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so this is not... Did I drop down to 0 health before that showed up? Is there a less than that should be less than or equal to? Anyway. Let's see. Let's design a fire tower visually. That's blue. I guess I will... Yeah, I'll go with the base tower. and use that as my base. What do I want this to look like? I don't have as clear a picture in my head as to what this should look like to communicate fire. Okay, so I am really bad at 3D modeling, and I don't want this video to just turn into a 3D modeling video, so this is what I made for the fire tower. This is supposed to look like a torch. It has a kind of tapered base and some stuff flowing out of the top. In the future, when I do 3D particles, these will be actual 3D particles that will actually look kind of a little bit like fire. Not now. They are not that now. Right now, they are just kind of like red spheres that don't really look like anything at all, but they'll be good enough. So let's change the 3D model to tower fire in the fire tower shooter thing, and we will we'll see how that looks when I spawn one in. So that doesn't really work with the color blending thing when it fades to red and then fades to green because of the actual vertex colors there. That's fine, I guess. If I build another one, I can build another one, right? They're not going to do anything. Again, the oh, I don't have enough money. The burn effect is going to be what does most of the damage, and that has yet to be implemented. Can I be brave? Can I send in more than one wave at once? Is that going to work? The ants are going to overtake the wood lice anyway. You are shooting, right? It looks like you are. Very slowly, for obvious reasons. Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Let's give up on that one. Okay, so what I might do is, one, make these other 3D models off recording on my own time so that I don't have to spend time on recording doing that. And two, I was going to test the stats for these, but it doesn't really make sense to do that without having their effects in. So let me program Fire Shooter. So there are entities. I'm looking for the fire tower entity. Tower buff. Entity foe. Oh, there isn't a fire tower one yet. Alright, that's fine, because you know what? The only different thing about those are going to be the projectiles that they shoot. And right now there is one and exactly one kind of bullet data. Which is the Pebble, which doesn't really do anything for us. Let's make this indented a little bit more. Fire. These don't really need a name attribute, but you know what? It'll make it easier to see. The test bullet. That I can create just by taking this and turning it red. This I can get away with. Again, future 3D particles, not now. Let's dye that red. Let's make this bullet fire, and that'll be a bit of a visual indication. And every time I close Model Creator, my screen recording goes black for a second, which still don't know exactly why that is. Again, GameMaker 7 software. That will be bullet fire that we will use. We will fire a bullet fire. Homonyms, words that sound the same but have different meanings and different spellings, such as fire and fire, although in this case they have the same spelling. Did I name it wrong again? Oh, it's .gmmod. Gmmod and D3D usually refer to the same file. I generally go with D3D just because it's a shorter file extension. GameMaker, Model Creator for GameMaker will try to save. Really? bullets-fire.d3d. Is this recognized by the included files? Sometimes, occasionally, there is a glitch where included files are not recognized for whatever reason. It's there. The game should know it's there. If it doesn't load, I'll try restarting GameMaker. Alright. As I was saying, the file extension is largely irrelevant. Model Creator for GameMaker will try to save .gmmod by default. I do not like that because it's a longer file extension, and yes, I'm not lazy. Does it actually matter? No. Is that the rationale that I came up with for that? Yes. And we'll be going with that. Okay. Let's reload Bombardier. And rerun it. And I have to increase the font size again, apparently, because the game turned off. Fabulous. Okay, the game ran now. Without any issue. If I create a fire tower, and if I send in a wave, and if I get a look at what it's shooting... If I can get a look at what it's shooting... Maybe when they swing by again? Will I be able to see it? Okay, yes, okay, that is the red ball. It's just shooting very infrequently. And, it's hard to see, because it moves fast. Bullet data. What do these actually do? There is an entity bullet, right? Yeah, there is an entity bullet. And... currently, they only really do one thing. The only real use for the bullet data is... Let me split this into two windows. The only real use for the bullet data is to contain the 3D model. This can also contain other things. I can, for example, add a method to the bullet data. Which is something like on hit, and that'll take a target parameter, which is an entity of type foe, and this is what's gonna run when the bullets hit something. And then in addition to or I should say instead of foe.damage and destroy, we will say, what was it? Bullet data dot on hit.
Hey.
Foe, and we can move that code to here. Actually, destroy should stay here, because that is that belongs to the bullet object, the instantiated entity bullet. Actually, for that matter, damage kind of belongs there too. And on hit, all right. I could say on hit is just let's have the damage execute first. On hit is just extra code, which can be a default function by default. So there's a few ways you could vary this. You could use inheritance. You could also do something such as pass a function to the constructor. And which would take the form of a function. And then self.onHit would, instead of being defined as a function there, would be the parameter. This is... I don't know if I want to do that, because the default, not all might actually do that. Alright, I won't do that. I will subclass it instead. There's something to be said for not going wild with inheritance, with object inheritance. I have a higher tolerance for object inheritance than a lot of developers do. I think as long as it, in small doses, as long as there's not so much of it that it's actually slowing the game down and making development difficult, there's nothing wrong with it, but you may wish instead to pass the onHit function to the constructor. What you can also do is say, you can, after the constructor has run, just attach the function to it, to the onHit like this, because GameMaker is a dynamic language, and you're allowed to do that. You're allowed to just rebind methods. Speaking of methods, it would technically have to be something like this to stay a method. That's a story for another day. We're gonna go with inheritance. Okay, so this is going to take the same parameters as the base class, and it's going to call the base class, the base constructor, rather. And the only difference is going to be... Oh, by the way, this should be... That is how JavaScript would define a method inside an object. That is not how GameMaker would define a method inside an object. OnHit is going to equal function... takes a target parameter, and we will say let's say target.burn. Burn is not a method that has been defined anywhere. This would go somewhere. Where is entity foe? This would go somewhere on here. You could say statuses. You could give it a status. Self.status burn equals false. And I guess I'll just put it here. Burn is equal to function. In the burn method, you set the status burn to true. You could just say targets.status burn equals true over here. There's going to be a little more that I'm going to do with this in a moment, where a method might be more desirable. Let's see. These have a damage method, right, which you can call from anywhere with an amount. In the update method, we can say if status burn damage. Let's just say 1. No, that's going to make it go way too fast and be difficult to see. Let's say damage 0.1, and we will dictate the strength of the burn later. But doing 0.1 damage every update should be, if you have like, I think if you start with 10 health is what they start with, they will take 100 ticks of burn damage before they die, which is about 1.5 seconds at 60 frames per second. And we should see them dropping dead of their own accord on hit at some point. And they are not. Okay, it is time to debug this. You guys are not taking burn damage, apparently. There's no visual indication of it, for one. Let's see. HP is the variable in question here. If I were to say... Oh, you know what? Okay. This is never running because I don't think I actually did anything with bullet data fire. So let's... Silly me, getting a little ahead of myself. Let's actually make the fire tower shoot those, and then we will see if they drop dead of their own accord after a period of time. Being on fire infinitely is obviously not preferable. There are some things about this that will not really work in a complete game that I will want to address later on. And you are indeed, after you get hit, you are dropping dead about 1 second later, which is what we want. Or what I want, anyway. So first, let's put a time limit on this. So instead of making this a true-false value, we can say... where is burn? It's up here, right? We can say status burn is equal to, let's say 2 seconds. 2 seconds of burn damage. And when it's defined, status burn is going to equal 0. And then... instead of just checking if this is true or false, we can say if status burn is greater than 0, do that, and status burn minus equals, since we are delta timing this, delta time over 1,000,000. Do I have a macro for delta time in seconds? I do. DT is a macro for delta time in seconds. It's just delta time divided by 1,000,000, so microseconds to seconds. And this is going to cause the burn to only last for a set amount of time, which is in this case 2 seconds. Furthermore, there's a couple things you can do about this. One is the strength of the burn. You could have that be variable depending on like who inflicts it. A stronger tower might burn you for more damage over time, whereas a weaker tower might only burn you for a little bit of damage over time. You could modulate the duration, so a stronger tower might burn you for longer. I think I'm going to do that, and I'm going to have burn damage amount be constant, so we will say burn is going to take a duration parameter. And do I want to have it be this complicated? Kind of, but also not really. For one, this is... Tower defense games are real-time strategy. Those games could get as complicated as you want them to. I do not want this game to be super complicated. I'm thinking I'm going to try to err on the side of simplicity for this, since I'm trying to make it in, like, within the duration of a YouTube video or a YouTube series. Preferably this whole thing is going to take less than a year. We'll see about that. So I'm going to get rid of the duration parameter and just, I'm going to define a few macros. So far, most of the macros here are just, like, technical stuff. There's the colors, there's the grid size and that sort of thing. There's a little bit of gameplay macro. There are the wave durations and that sort of thing. I'm going to create a macro burn duration. And that is going to be, let's say, 2 seconds. I'm going to create another one. Let's call that burn DPS, and that can be, let's say, 2 damage per second. So 2 DPS per 2 seconds is going to be burn is going to do a total of 4 damage for these things. That's reasonable. That will make the fire tower a lot more powerful than it was before, or at least before the burn was implemented. It's obviously weaker than the indefinite burn, but the indefinite burn doesn't really work super good for gameplay, I don't think. Status burn is going to equal burn duration. And then down here, where was it? Did I scroll too far? Down here, we are going to burn for burn DPS times delta time. Delta time is going to be about 1/60th to turn damage per second into damage per update. We are going to multiply damage per second by the delta time, or at least by the update interval. If you didn't have the update method running in every step of the game, of a fixed time step game of 60 frames per second, this would work differently. You would want a different frame time counter for this, but for me, we are running the update method in every frame, so there's no need to do that. All right, so let's build a fire tower. This thing is growing on me, and when I say growing on me, I mean it's slightly less offensive than I thought it was a minute ago. So I don't think the hit from the tower, which is what, 1 plus the 4 total burn damage, is going to be enough to take these things down. Oh no, it looks like it is. All right. These guys don't have as much HP as I thought they did. I thought they had 10. Maybe they just have 5. Unfortunately, the 2 seconds of burn time is not going to be enough to actually take them down before they reach the end. All right, that is not what I want. I want a fire tower. You can tell I've been playing an unhealthy amount of Bloons Tower Defense 6 because I tried to cancel a tower build by moving the cursor off screen. Anyway, I see currency being gained because these things are being unexisted. They're being murdered by the fire tower. Okay. I do have enough money to build one now. Alright, this is working. Is there another wave? Can I send in another wave? I'm gonna win this round with 6 HP, looks like. These guys are slow. There's enough time for the burn damage to rack up on them enough to actually finish them off. Alright. This is functional. There's a bunch of things that need to be done. 1, some visual indication that a thing is burned, obviously. 2, some visual indication that this is a fire tower besides just the random ball sticking out of the top. What else needs to be done? Burn has been implemented. This is going to be very similar to poison. I've been recording for 57 minutes and I would totally implement poison now, but I don't want to spend too much time sitting here and doing that, so that's going to wait for the next video. Poison spray, the laser from the magnifying glass, the whatever it is, those are definitely going to be implemented in the next video, and I'm going to try to nail down tower_buff for the next video. So, I have not committed anything in this video, and I am kind of annoyed that I forgot to do that. Can I commit this in pieces? For example, the 3D models first. Sure, let's commit the change to rm_test. Added some tower 3D model. Like that. Not perhaps the best, but it'll do the job. So, if you want the code for this, as always, there will be a link in the video description to a GitHub repository. And look for the 0.2, what are we up to, 2.3 release? Week 23 for this, 0.23. If there are any future releases than that, feel free to poke through them to see what I will be doing in future videos. Anyway, I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute towards these being made, there's links to that around as well. I try to post a couple of these videos a week, one of these and one tutorial. If you have any suggestions, such as the person a while ago who suggested the magnifying glass tower, definitely let me know. I will be more than happy to make this a bit of a community effort thing. If anyone's interested in that, put everyone's name in the credits. They'll probably release it for free on itch or something when it's done. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to David Key, Edward Holt, Emily Koyo, Indie Punch, Jason, and Zenith for supporting these videos. If you want to see your name in the credits, or to hear yourself shouted out at the end, head on over to the Patreon page in the video description to join the fun.